Hi, my name is Dan Clark. You may remember me as Nitro from the American Gladiators. I've just written a book, Gladiator, True Story of Roids, Rage, and Redemption. Even though the topic is gladiators and it is about steroids, that it goes miles deeper than that. It's a story about love, family, addiction, identity, and redemption. I first started taking steroids in 1982. This is when they weren't illegal, and when I saw a guy in the gym and he was huge and I asked him what he did, when he told me he took steroids, I didn't even know what they were. You have to remember the national landscape was different. It wasn't all in the headlines. There were a few people who were huge, but we had no idea they were taking steroids. For me, I found steroids to be both psychologically and physically addicting. Psychologically, I remember playing Madison Square Garden, and there were 16,000 people in the stands, and when I walked out, they all slammed to their feet and they were chanting my name, and that's intoxicating. And to think sometimes that that's tied into steroids and to have to give up the drug, you're giving that away. But I think it all goes back to, feeling as a human being, as a person, that you're enough. I think it goes miles deeper than I took steroids. I think we have to look at the stereotypes we put upon young girls and young boys. When I was 4 years old, my parents got divorced. My dad got custody of my brother and I, and my mom got custody of my sister. I remember being on the plane. My dad was taking us to live somewhere else, and I remember when I was on the plane, I looked through the window of the plane and I could see my mom and my sister, and my family was being torn apart. And I remember standing in the aisle at 4 years old, and I was just weeping. I was crying. I was inconsolable. And there was a man next to me on the plane, and he said, hey, stop crying. He says, big boys don't cry. And he asked me to flex my arm, and I flexed my arm, and this little muscle popped up. And there, he said, look, you got a muscle. You're a big boy, and big boys don't cry. Well, that never left me. A few years later in Vietnam, when my older brother died in my arms, I remember what he said, and I did not cry. And I kept that mantra with me my entire life. And, I realize now that I built that big body, I built all those muscles, all to live up to what I believed was true, that big boys don't cry. And the journey of this book, emotionally, is the story of a little boy who did what he thought he needed to do to become a man, but eventually, as a man, he learned to become a human being, a complete person.